Alright, Shalom Hebrews. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. Man, I want to get this little message in Hebrews. I pray the Israelite community is doing swell and that Almighty Yah is looking after everybody. But I want to do this little video, on King David. Was the Egyptians scared of King David? Because, I can show that, the Yah worshippers, if it's enough of us, that our enemies get scared and won't do nothing to us, won't violate us, and just basically leave us alone. But if it ain't a bunch of Yah worshippers, that some of the Yah worshippers perish because of the lack of Yah worshippers being the majority and so forth. And man, I'm a show that King Josiah, was killed by the Hamites, the Egyptians, because he gonna be Yah worshippers, and the Egyptians not gonna like the Yah worshippers. They are not gonna like the Yah worshippers, being that they're pantheon, they gods, and the Egyptian gods didn't coincide with the Israelite Yah who freed the Israelites from the Egyptian bondage. They gods was already established, while we was in captivity there. So, and then we know that when we left Egypt, that the Yah that we worship showed the Egyptians God ineffective by how we exodus, and then how the Creator dealt with Egypt, with its plagues and so forth. So we had the one and true real Creator. And I want to show that, that when it's Yah worshippers, man, the Egyptians will sit down and be quiet and didn't try nothing. But if it ain't enough Yah worshippers, man, that they'll clown, as well as our enemies and the other folks that was surrounding us at the time that we was on the promised land. Yeah, man, it's awful, that it ain't enough Yah worshippers now. Because if it was, it could easily turn our captivity if it's enough Yah worshippers. But I want to show how the Egyptians and the Assyrians, they manipulated us and they played us, and it was basically during the time that it wasn't Yah worshippers, no Yah worshipper on the throne. We know that the northern kingdom, or what's called the northern kingdom, the northern parts of our empire, man, was broke up because of Egyptian religion. And then the Egyptian religion is kind of like, the same as the Mesopotamian religion. They gods are basically equal. They just got different names and so forth. But how they worship the same gods and so forth, the Mesopotamian and the Egyptian gods. And it's probably a fact that the Egyptian gods come from Mesopotamia and went to Egypt and so forth, the fallen angelic beings and so forth. I'm going to show and share a little history on that. They showing a pattern, how the Mesopotamian, Babylonian, Amorite system kind of like dominated the world at one time, basically, and how that they was influenced by the serpents, what I'm saying? The Amorites and the serpents, kind of mix and become one, and that's what you call the Nephilims. We had battles with them when we was freed from Egypt, a kindred system that had us in bondage. And because we didn't destroy those Amorites, in the Amorite administrative structure, is that we are in bondage to an Amorite administrative culture right now today, in bondage. The very Israelites that didn't destroy the Amorite Babylonian system that's connected to Egypt, and how we didn't destroy it, and how we paying a terrible, grievous price right now today. And that's because it's not enough Yah worshippers. If it's enough Yah worshippers, mean that, we could turn the tide, and that our enemies kind of like, don't, dog us out, and kind of like a leave us alone. But if it ain't enough y'all worshipers, mean that our enemies will cut the clown. And I'm going to show this, that the Edomites, that the Edomites had a trade with Egypt, and I could show that, when we exodus Egypt under the banner of supposedly following the law, even though we had some Egyptians mixed in with us, but when we filtered them out and got them out, and then it was Yah worshipers, because we wandered around in the desert for 40 years because we had some Egyptians mixed up with us that was trying to push that Egyptian culture and so forth, and then that made Almighty Yah not bring us into the promised land because we would have had some people that was kindred and doing the same system that the peoples was doing that's in the land that we were supposed to destroy. So it would have been hard for us to destroy the land. As it turned out, eventually for us, hard for us to destroy the land, and then that's what caused us to be destroyed. But I want to show how that the Egyptians, man, they wouldn't come across the promised land if it's enough Yah worshipers. And I got it down, man. If they were scared of King David, you don't hear Egyptian nowhere during King David times, and then how that they was on quiet. But I could show that when we had a weak king, that the Egyptians, man, come across, the Syrians and everybody come across. And then we know that in the ancient days, that ancient Egypt was the commercial center of the world. About like what the United States is today, and how it's the cultural center of the world. Well, back in the days, the Egyptians was the cultural center of the world, in that all commerce and trade, basically, came from Egypt and so forth, and that Egypt controlled commerce, as well as, Mesopotamia too, but it was mostly coming from Egypt, going to other places, and going to Mesopotamia, or the Mesopotamia area, the Mesopotamia area and so forth right here. And that when Egypt did trade, that they had to come across the promised land. They were sneaking, dodge around this way and deal with the Amorites, the Edomites, because the Edomites, controlled the copper mines and so forth. And Egypt loved copper, and copper was, took all over and so forth. And that how Egypt did trade across the promised land, especially, man, the Egyptians and the Assyrians, man, they kindred. The Syrian stock come off the Hamites, Ham stock that populated Babylon, and that how Usher was a son of Nimrod and so forth, Ham, and that how that those folks are Hamites originally and so forth, and that they had established civilization and trade, meaning that trade went all the way into Africa, and Egypt was the leading source, man, of that trade that, kept it going and so forth. And then how Egypt dominated, you know what I'm saying, man, all around her. And that how Egypt didn't have no problem with the Amorites and so forth, and how it was like a free, open trade, man, before us Israelites got established. And history showed that the Amorites and the Egyptians, man, they had caravans going into Egypt, man, into the Sahara, because it was the Mishwish was. And I'm explaining them folks got us messed up real bad, and how the tribe of Ephraim was infused with the Mishwish tribes from Joseph marrying the priest of own daughter and having kids. And I showed that was a strategic moved by Pharaoh in some videos, because Pharaoh gonna know, the Pharaoh dynasties and leadership are gonna know, and they keep track of everything and got eyes everywhere. Eyes everywhere, that when Prophet Abraham came, that he didn't worship the the Egyptian gods, man. They kicked him out, gave him some gold, and kicked him out. And then they probably realized he going to the promised land to set up. Well, eventually, some Hebrews end up in Egypt, the prophet Jacob and so forth, and that we sojourned in there, and then they eventually blocked us and locked us down, because the Egyptians gonna be smart, man. They gonna realize, man, they got to do trade, man, across the promised land, and then that the Egyptian got priests, man. They ain't got uh, 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 man, computers and stuff, man. They dealing with pure knowledge, man. They know that, man, they got the Israelites in Egypt, and that they ain't in the promised land. So the Egyptians lock us down, man. We Yah worshipers, man. They know Almighty Yah with us, so the Egyptians might be trying to see if they can fully inverse us into the Egyptian culture and so forth. And we stayed there a long time, and then we eventually, some Yah worshipers still there. Man, some Yah worshipers in Egypt. Moses was one. You see what I'm saying? As well as, the prophet Abraham, Jacob and Joseph knew was Yah worshipers. So it's going to be some Yah worshipers still there while we there. And then when it probably get enough of us, and then we in bondage, that they kick us out. You know what I'm saying? And then we go, man, into the promised land to get rid of the people that got a similar system with Almighty Yah, backing us, the Creator backing us. And this the thing is that when we was kicked out of Egypt, that it was a definition set there, a difference, in that the Egyptians couldn't come across the promised land no more, because we was told that we wouldn't look that way and we wouldn't go that way to fool with the Egyptians for nothing. The kings can't go to Egypt and multiply horses and wives and so forth, and how that was a law, and that how we couldn't go to Egypt, what I'm saying, anymore after we had left doing Exodus, and that how we was through with Egypt. It was through with Egypt, and that Almighty Yah made the difference between us and the Egyptians. We the Yah worshipers, the one God worshipers, whereas the Egyptians, worship multiple gods and so forth. And then, man, let me see if I can get some of that in here. The Egyptians, man, they ain't worship the Most High, and then I can show how Pharaoh didn't believe in the Creator. So that if it's some Yah worshipers in the Promised Land, and the Pharaoh institution don't believe in the Creator, you know what I'm saying? That man, they gonna disrespect all Yah worshipers that's on the land that represent the Creator, and then I can show that that's what they was doing at different times, and then that King David, they didn't bother. King David, they didn't bother, because he was a killer Yah worshiper and so forth, whereas the other Yah worshiper kings like King Josiah mostly just got rid of the idols and cleaned the land up. Go to your house, get rid of the idols, and snatch them out your house and tear them up and burn them. And now he wasn't just kill the people outright. He'll get rid of the Jeroboam Egyptian priests and so forth. But the people, he ain't just put his hands heavy on them. Whereas King David didn't bar none. If you wasn't a Yah worshiper, you didn't stand a chance of probably living during King David time if you was in the kingdom. Oh man, they gonna get you. King David's soldiers in his outfit was Yah worshipers, and then they would define the Israelite nation and how it was defined in the Tanakh, and the example that they set. What was the Yah worshiper? Samuel was a Yah worshiper. King Saul was a Yah worshiper. King David was a Yah worshiper. Those are Yah worshipers right there, and they set the tone of Yah worship. And then you can see during their time that our enemies, like the Egyptians and so forth, who always been the enemy to the Israelites, ain't try to come past the promised land. And they ain't try to come past the promised land. They ain't try to come past the promised land at all. Man, look, all right, I got what the Egyptians calling these guns, but let's find what the Egyptians don't believe in. Yeah, shit, all right, Israelites, let's get into this lesson. All right, and now look at this right here. All right. So to show that the pharaohs didn't believe in the Creator, look, and this is Exodus 5, dealing with the bondage of the Israelites. And Pharaoh said, "Who is the Elohim that I shall obey his voice and let Israel go? I know not the Elohim, nor will I let Israel go." Now you see that. Now that's the Pharaoh institution. One Pharaoh, they all gonna be the same. They all gonna be the same. And let's see Exodus 8:26. 8:26. Let's see what 8:26 say. 8:26. Alright. And Moses said, "Is it not meet to do so to do, for we shall sacrifice." Let me see. And Moses said, and Pharaoh called Moses and for Aaron and said, "Go ye sacrifice to your gods in the land." Talking about in his land, sacrifice our Yah in his land, among all the God's son worshipers. And then we worship one creator. We ain't got no respect for they gods. But Pharaoh tell us to go worship our Yah in the midst of the non-believers. In the midst of the non-believers. Look, and Pharaoh called for Moses and for Aaron and said, "Go ye sacrifice your God in the land." And Moses said, "It is not meet so to do, for we shall sacrifice the abomination of the Egyptians before their eyes, and will they not stone us?" So why wouldn't the Egyptians hate King Josiah, man, for being a Yah worshiper? You know what I'm saying? I had a little debate with an Israelite. There's always a woman that, the woman be trying to, drive hard. We got some good knowledgeable Israelite women. But when it's captivity in, you Israelite women gonna have to sit down and tend to the house. And the babies, because we can't build no nation if you ain't in the house, taking care of the house. So, a lot of you women opinions, it matter. But, you gonna be in that house taking care, you know what I'm saying, that family like you supposed to. So, but I had a debate with a sister and she gonna say, well, the King Josiah, didn't get killed by the Egyptians because he was a Yah worshiper. And I'm telling her that King Josiah was killed by the Egyptians because he was a Yah worshiper, and that the Egyptians was trying to connect with the Assyrians and so forth, because the Assyrians had set up the Egyptian dynasty, and they only come across the land when we got a weak king. When we got a weak king that's not a real hard Yah worshiper, then the enemies, transgress the promised land, trespass the promised land, coming back and forth, and that how that when we worshiping Yah, that, the enemy don't come across the promised land. And I'm going to try to demonstrate, man, and show that. This is not going to be a long video. But we see that the Egyptians did not worship Almighty Yah. You know what I'm saying? We see that plain and clear as stated. You know what I'm saying? And let me see this again. Look. Let me see. But as for thee and thy servants, I know not that ye would not ye fear the Lord. Alright. And I am gone and and will spread you abroad my hands against the law with thunder. But as for thee and thy servants, I know that ye will not fear the Elohim Yah. You know what I'm saying? He talking about Pharaoh. And Moses went out of the city from Pharaoh and spread abroad his hand unto the Elohim and thunder come down. Pharaoh didn't never believe in the creator. In the Pharaoh, in the Egyptian system, ain't gonna never believe in the creator. You know what I'm saying? And ain't never believed in the creator. You know what I'm saying? So, the Egyptians didn't worship the creator. So, if it's a Israelite that worship the creator, that, man, they ain't gonna like that. And then I could show that they didn't come across the promised land or try to come across the promised land too much when it was Yah worshippers in Judah. Because we got to remember that the Egyptians real slick. Now they got to do trade. They got to do trade across the promised land. They got to do trade across the promised land, or else the Egyptians ain't gonna make it. If we doing the covenant, Egypt is bottled up. Ain't no coming across to connect with none of the false god worships they was connected to, their relatives, and how we cut them off by being on the land doing the covenant. Yes, man, if we doing the covenant right here, right there, and then our borders went from the Nile all the way to the Euphrates, is what Almighty Yah wanted us to take over and control. And then if we control that, then that's the death of Egypt. If it's Yah worshipers in the land, because they can't come across the promised land, and the Egyptians can't connect with the Mesopotamians, and the Mesopotamians can't connect with the Egyptians, and that both of them needed each other to survive. Yes, both of them needed each other to survive. The Egyptians needed the Babylonians, or the people from Mesopotamia, and the people from Mesopotamia needed the Egyptians. They did trade. But if we doing the covenant, then they can't come across me in the promised land. They can't come across the promised land. And I'm going to show this, how Almighty Yah put the difference between us and them. And the children of Israel said unto the Lord, no, alright. Almighty Yah put the difference between us and the Egyptians when we Exodus. It was a difference put between us and them. It was a difference between us and them. Alright. Alright, this will be Exodus 14, when Almighty Yah overthrew the Egyptians and made the difference between us and them. Look, and Moses said unto the people, fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of the Elohim which he will show you today. For the Egyptians whom ye have seen today, ye shall see them no more. Never again. Them again no more. Forever. Look, forever. So then that means the Egyptians can't come across our land, and Prophet Moses was finna fix it. Well, they was finna be cut off and die because they couldn't come across the land. We was finna starve their religious system. But we didn't. And that's because whenever it ain't enough Yah worshipers, me and our enemies gonna get us. You know what I'm saying? Even if it's some Yah worshipers, and how the Yah worshipers just got individual protection from the Creator. But if we all Yah worshipers, then we all got protection. Now let's go to Leviticus 18:3. So we know, you know what I'm saying, that we wasn't supposed to fool with the Egyptians. And then it's a part, look, let me see this, all right? And Elohim hardened Pharaoh's heart, Pharaoh king of Egypt, and he pursued after the children of Israel, and the children of Israel went out with an high hand, but the Egyptians pursued after them. All the horses and chariots and horses and horsemen in his army overtook them, encamping at the sea besides Potipherah, before Baal-perazim. And when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them, and they were so afraid. And the children of Israel cried out unto the Elohim. See, everybody believed, crying out to Almighty Yah. We didn't cry out to the Egyptians, God, but we cried out to the Creator that the Egyptians didn't believe in. And they said unto Moses, because there was, all right, so then as we get down, the Elohim shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. And the Elohim said unto Moses, wherefore criest thou unto me? Speak unto the children of Israel that they go forward. But lift up thy rod, and stretch out thine hand over the sea, and divide it, and the children of Israel shall go through on dry ground in the midst of the sea. And I beheld, and I hardened the hearts of the Egyptians, and they shall follow them, and I will get honor upon them, and upon all the host of Pharaoh, and upon his chariots, and upon his horsemen, and the Egyptians shall know that I am the Elohim when I have gotten me honor upon Pharaoh, and upon his chariots, and upon his horsemen. And the angel of the Elohim which went before the camp of Israel removed and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud went from before their face and stood behind them. And the Elohim said unto Moses, speak unto Aaron thy brother, that he come not out at all the time. All right, that's a different part. I don't know where I jumped there. And it come between the camp and the Egyptians and the camp of Israel, and there was a cloud of darkness to them, but gave light by night to these, so that the one come not near a minute to the other all night. And Moses stretched out his hand all over the sea. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, man, we dogged the Egyptians out, and we wasn't supposed to see them no more go across the land. So that's killing the Egyptian system with connected with the Mesopotamians and so forth. You know what I'm saying? And then, we Exodus, and then Joshua, we get in our started to get in our spot under King Joshua, who was by coincidence from the tribe of Ephraim. And then, we know that, that we had our troubles in Judges where we didn't subdue the people like we were supposed to. We got in the promised land. But we didn't subdue the land like we were supposed to. We got in the land, but we didn't subdue it like we supposed to, with destroying our enemies and so forth. And then therefore, we was fractured and throwed off. And then, when the kingdom split, after King David's death, who was a Yah worshiper, and then I could show that the Egyptians didn't come across the promised land during King David's time. And then when King David passed away, how his son Solomon immediately hooked up with the Egyptians and so forth. Immediately hooked up with the Egyptians. And now the Egyptians doing trade back and forth, and what kind of like have a permanent establishment after King David through Jeroboam, who was from the tribe of Ephraim that was connected to the Egyptians. And then this is the tribe of Ephraim connected to the Egyptians. As if you go to Genesis, I think it's 42. Let's see. Genesis 42. So after King David's death, man, they gon', from the tribe of Ephraim, Jeroboam, got chased into Egypt, and then when he come out, he put the Egyptian system that stayed on the northern kingdom, cause the kingdom split, stayed on the northern kingdom, and oh man, that messed us up. And now the Yah worshippers are just in Judah, and that's bordering Egypt. And I can show at different times that if it's a bad king, the Egyptians and the Assyrians are coming across the promised land. But if it's a good king, you don't hear from the Egyptians. They ain't coming across the promised land. They ain't gonna come across the promised land. They were scared to. Because they scared of the Yah worshippers. Alright, look. Pharaoh being slick right here. After he realized that we connected to the Creator, this was before the Exodus. This was when we come into Egypt, as a family. This is after Prophet Abraham left, and they already know about us now. The Egyptians' wicked priests gonna know us some Yah worshipers over there in the promised land, but Prophet Abraham wasn't established. He hadn't had his son Jacob yet. And then when he have his son Jacob, and then we finally get in Egypt, Egypt gonna lock us down and put us down because we some Yah worshipers. We in a way of doing trade with Mesopotamia and so forth. See, we got to be smart looking at this Israelite history. Even though it's not written outright like that, you can see this if you understand Israelite history, as I'm finna show. Look, and Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh. Let me see. And Pharaoh called Joseph, named Zaphnathpaaneah, and he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potipherah, priest of On. The Mishwish tribes controlled the priest of On, Upper Egypt. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. All right. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of the famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potipherah, priest of On, bore unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for Yah said he had made me forget all my toils and all my father's house. And the name of the second, the youngest, called he Ephraim, for Yah had called me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. So Ephraim, the youngest out of all the tribes, man, I can show that the Egyptians, through Jeroboam, gonna be from the tribe of Ephraim, that after King David's death, that the Egyptians were scared of him, but because I could show him chasing some Edomites to Egypt, and then I could show that the Egyptians and the Edomites did trade. You didn't see them come back and try to do nothing to King David for destroying the Edomites, who were of essence to the Egyptians because of trade. All right, let's show Jeroboam. After Solomon's death, because we got strong Yah worshipers. The Israelite nation is made up of the Yah worshipers that was doing Samuel, Saul, and King David's time. About 130 years of Yah worship made the whole Israelite history. And I can show that, man, before then, when we exited Egypt, that under Prophet Moses, that we had some Egyptians with us that tried to mess us up. Because like I say, Pharaoh gonna be done gave Joseph, Asenath, our enemies, give us our women, give us their women, man, to hinder us sometime and stuff. And then that's what they did to Joseph and so forth. And then this, allowed some of them Egyptians to leave with us too, man. If you go to Exodus 12, Exodus 12:38, you'll see that after we left Egypt, and a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, and very much cattle, them cattle worshippers. That's going to be some of the Mishwish tribes, the tribe of Ephraim, kindreds and relatives leaving Egypt with us. So they going to be with us. And then that's why it was easy for this to happen. When you look at it, when Prophet Moses went up to get the law, when Prophet Moses went up to get the law, and then them folks was with us, them Egyptians was with us, and then that caused us to do that golden calf worship. Look, all right, speak unto the children of Israel. This is Exodus 31. With the Egyptians with us, that we had to roam around in the desert 40 years till we get rid of them, and it don't be nothing but Yah worshipers. And then the Yah worshipers went into the land to take care of the business against the non-Yah worshipers. Look, speak thou so unto the children of Israel, and say, verily, verily, my... All right, now this ain't it. All right. And it's 32. Exodus 32. And when the children of Israel saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, the people gathered themselves together unto Aaron and said unto him, make us gods which shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we know not what has become of him. And Aaron said unto them, break ye off clothing rings. He's been influenced by them folks. Let me see, it was a whole bunch of Egyptian worshipers with us, and then they gonna go make that golden calf, and they have turned aside quickly. Prophet Moses come back around. Oh man, it was on because of that, and then the people had to roam around. You know what I'm saying? So they gave him fire, and then they made the golden calf. It's cause that mixed multitude gonna be with us. Prophet Moses gone, the leader, the real hard y'all worshiper, and the Egyptians tried to pull it fast. All right, so we know that the Egyptians, was mixed with us, and that we had to roam around for 40 years, and then we go into Judge Joshua, and then they tell us we're going into the land. We know who the enemies is. We got to destroy them. All right, and then we get into Judges. Man, the Israelites are being lax, and they ain't completing the mission and so forth. Indeed, how we going into all kind of bondages because the people are not all Yah worshipers, and how did we start fooling with the other enemies, religion and gods and so forth. But when we start doing that, then you ain't got a majority Yah worshipers. It's got to be a majority of Yah worshipers. Look. And after the death of Joshua, it come to pass that the children of Israel asked Elohim, who shall go up before us against the Canaanites? All right, let me see. All right, not this. All right. And neither did Manasseh drive out the inhabitants of Bethshan and their towns, or Tanakh and their towns, and Dor and her towns, but the Canaanites would dwell in the land, and as well as the rest of. Neither did Ephraim drive out the Canaanites that dwelt in the land of Gezer, but the Canaanites dwelt in Gezer among them. Neither did Zebulun drive out the inhabitants of such and such. You know what I'm saying? They didn't drive them out. But the Asherites dwelled among the Canaanites, for they did not drive them out. Neither did Naphtali drive out the inhabitants of Bethshan, and the Amorites forced the children of Dan out the mountains, but the Amorites would dwell in her. So it go on like that. And that whenever we start slipping with our enemies' religion, they gonna get us. They gonna get us knowing that we're Yah worshipers, you know what I'm saying? And they whole goal is to get us to stop the Yah worship and get us on their religion, and then they can get us. You know what I'm saying? And that was happening a whole lot in the past. And then we know that went on, man, for a while, and that we have leaders rise up and take control, the Yah worshipers, and then, we'll go back into bondage because it ain't enough Yah worshipers. And then we finally get to Samuel, a Yah worshiper to the heart. And then we get to King Saul, a Yah worshiper to the heart. You don't see none of our enemies trying to pull a fast one during their time. And then especially during King David time. During King David time, oh man, the enemy stayed on disappear. He stayed on disappear. You couldn't find him nowhere. And then King David did this right here, which would bring the Egyptians out. But they never came out. All right, let me find this verse right here. All right, what King David did to the Edomites. All right. All right, first let me show the Edomites doing some trade. Man. The Edomites got all the trade coming from Egypt, All right. All right, let's see this. Let's ride from the King's Highway. The Edomites. The Edomites were one of several states in the region for whom trade was vital to the scarcity of Arab land. So they had to do some trade. The Egyptians provided the Egyptians provided technological leap for the Edomite kingdom. Now y'all see that? Now you know what I'm saying? So the Egyptians would be pissed off, man, that King David went and whooped men on them Edomites. And I can show that one time we cleared the Edomites out of towns, fruit towns and so forth, and how that they king would run to Egypt, and then he'll give them a refuge and so forth. You see what I'm saying? And that how that they ain't come back and try to come back through the promised land, because you got Yah worshipers. And then I could show that after King David, Solomon wasn't a Yah worshiper all the way. And man, all kind of stuff went wrong and stuff. Look, all right. So Edom, you know what I'm saying? The Edom, look, the kingdom of Edom drew much of its livelihood from caravan trade between Egypt. You know what I'm saying? The Levant and Mesopotamia and southern Arabia along incense routes. You know what I'm saying? They controlled the incense routes back in the days. So King David would have been interfering with that when he did this. And the Elohim, this is 1 Kings 11:14. And the Elohim stirred up the adversary unto Solomon, Hadad the Edomite. You see, King Solomon ain't following the law. He was a king. He was of the king's seed in Edom. You know, this Hadad was of the royalty in Edom, Edom's royalty. For it come to pass when David was in Edom, and Joab the captain of the host was gone up to bury the slain, and after he had smitten every male in Edom for 6 months, did Joab remain there with all Israel until he had cut off every male in Edom. That's going to be their fighters and their warriors. How we put the whoop on them. These the Yah worshippers going to take it to the enemies. You know, the enemies ain't going to try to come across promised land. Man, if you taking a fight to them, look, that Hadad fled. He and certain Edomites of his father's servants with him to go into Egypt, Hadad being yet a little child. And they arose out of Medine and came to Paran. I mean, that's going to be what Ishmael ran to kick it. You know what I'm saying? And then this Hadad going to get men from Paran where Ishmael kicked it at. And then they going to all go into Egypt because Ishmael is an Egyptian also. Look, and they arose out of Medine and came to Paran. And they took men of them out of Paran, and they come to Egypt unto Pharaoh, king of Egypt, which gave him a house and appointed him victuals and gave him land. That's why the Edomites control Egypt right now. Is because Pharaoh gave them land in Egypt long time ago. But let me look at this right here. Let's see, man, if I can find this. All right, this would be Genesis 21:21. Let's see what that says. Genesis 21:21. It's going to have to be about Ishmael. So Edom went to and got some Ishmaelites. All right, 21:21. All right. And Yah was with the lad, and he grew and dwelled in the wilderness and became an archer. And he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran. And his mother took him a wife out of the land of Egypt. So Edom gonna go get up with them Ishmaelites. You know what I'm saying? And that's Ishmael. That's Ishmael right there. That's Ishmael that men that stayed there. You know what I'm saying? That's Edom's roots. In Paran is with Ishmael and Hagar and so forth. You know what I'm saying? And Ishmael was in Paran, and we see that Edom, after being chased by King David, and they arose of Medine and came to Paran, and they took men with them out of Paran. So those men gonna be mixed in with the Edomites. Those Ishmaelites and Edomites are cooperating. They're cooperating, and the Israelites was the enemy at the time. And them suckers couldn't come across the promised land long as King David doing the law and following the law. And that's why Almighty Yah loved him, because he wouldn't only get rid of the idols, he'll get rid of the people that worship the idols. Whereas some of the the prophecy king, he got rid of the idols. But King David getting rid of the people that worship the idols. You see, that's a big difference. That's a plus right there. When you get rid of the people that worship the idols, don't get rid of the idols. Get rid of the people that worship the idols. is what King David did. And we see that, and Pharaoh, look, we know that Edomites went and hooked up with the Ishmaelites. All right. And her dad found great favor in the sight of Pharaoh, so that he gave him to wife his sister of his own wife, the sister of Tahpenes, the queen. So, man, we know that Edom got bloodline with the Egyptians. So Edom and the Egyptians got bloodline together, as the Tanakh just showed, that Edom royalty married over into Pharaoh's royalty. And that's why the Edomites are in control of the whole land Egypt right now. All right. Now, man, let's look at Solomon. Solomon. All right. Solomon come on after King David, who protected the promised land. No Egyptians coming across the promised land during King David time. They were scared of it. He even chased some of their partners, the Pharaoh partner, Edom, out of his holding and ran him into Egypt, as I just showed. So we know, from Samuel, Saul, and King David, hard Yah worshipers, Yah worshipers that'll put your lights out. All right, and then when it get to Solomon, oh man, everything just fall apart. Everything fall apart, and that how Solomon chased Jeroboam, who was from the tribe of Ephraim, who, the tribe of Ephraim was created from a conspiracy from Pharaoh giving Joseph Asenath, and then here go one of their descendants popping up years later to put the Israelites on the Egyptian religion after he was chased into Egypt. After he was chased into Egypt. And let me show this. Alright. So we go to that'll be 1 Kings 11, and then we get to 26. All right, and Jeroboam of the son of Nebat, an Ephraimite of Zerudah, Solomon's servant, whose mother name was Zerah, a widow woman, even he lifted up his hand against the king. That's because Solomon was doing all this old stuff. And Solomon sought therefore to kill Jeroboam, and Jeroboam arose and fled to Egypt, to his relatives, to Shechem. You know what I'm saying? Oh man, long as it ain't no Yah worshipers, man, the Egyptians come out and robbed Jeroboam. Robbed him. Jeroboam had to been behind that. Look, the king of Egypt, and was in Egypt until the death of Solomon. And Solomon, followed the Egyptian, the culture. And Jeroboam come up to Jerusalem and assembled all. All right, and let me see. I can see. Yeah. All right. This is Jeroboam putting the Egyptian worship on the northern kingdom. Wherefore the king took counsel and made 2 calves of gold, and said unto them, it is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Behold thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. You know what I'm saying? And he said 2 of them in the northern kingdom, in Bethel, and 1 in Dan. So that was on us. And then that destroyed what's called the northern kingdom. And I'm going to show you this here, how it wasn't nothing but bad kings. And then I can show how the tribe of Ephraim kept a connection to the Egyptians. And then you can see that when it was Yah worshipers on the land, that they didn't come across the promised land. But if it's a king that wasn't right, you'll see the Egyptians and the Syrians somewhere hanging around and so forth. All right, now from Jeroboam putting us on the Egyptian religion, you see what time it is, 931, 910 BC. And then you see all these Israelite kings. Bad. All of them bad. Look, all of them bad. Because all of them did the Egyptian religion. This is keeping Egypt alive. And this is keeping our culture fractured. This is keeping us from doing the covenant. And this is getting us ready for slavery. that we in today, because after King Josiah's death, who the Egyptians killed, because there wasn't enough Yah worshipers, that when the Egyptians killed him, and man, they put us on Egyptian religion, and we would get chased into Africa and never to be seen anymore. But if you look back, man, before King Josiah was killed by the Egyptians, you'll see that his father Amon wasn't right, and his great grandfather Manasseh wasn't right. And then you'll see during King Hezekiah time, the Egyptians had popped up. The Assyrians had popped up because his father Ahaz wasn't right. But the Egyptians couldn't come across the promised land because King Hezekiah worshiped Yah. He was a Yah worshiper, a hard Yah worshiper. But these other kings, Manasseh and Amon, wasn't Yah worshipers. And then you're going to see that the Egyptians and the Assyrians come across the promised land. And that whenever we had a bad king in Judah, that's when the Egyptians and the Assyrians were involved, you know what I'm saying, in our land and so forth. So we see what time that Manasseh and Amon was on. And then look at this right here. Israelites. Let me show you this. Yeah, so whenever they in the Yah worshipers, our enemies gonna transgress the promised land. Alright, look. Alright. Now, the Assyrian conquest of Egypt. Look, you see the Assyrian conquest of Egypt, the time it was, that's gonna be the time that these bad kings on. See, they tried to come through. They tried to come through under King Hezekiah because his father Ahaz was messing around. He ain't gonna just tell this outright in the Tanakh, but that's what's secretly going on. It's trade going on. Trade is more important than anything. Like how trade dominate the world now. Trade dominated the world then. And the Egyptians can't do trade if we following the law. And we was following the law under King Hezekiah, and then they couldn't connect. But you see, right after King Hezekiah, man, they must have influenced Amon and Manasseh and Amon, because look, the Syrians show up. They show up. And look, when we get back on the Yah worship, under King Josiah, we were still feeling the effects, man, from Amon. But King Josiah cleaned up all the Egyptian religion, all the Egyptian and Babylonian religion out the kingdom. And then, you know, man, that's going to make the Egyptians want to kill him. And they killed him because, remember, the folks, ain't doing right. And that's what the book of Jeremiah is about. He telling you right after the death of King Josiah, it was over with for the Israelite nation. It's like King Josiah was the Messiah, the sacrifice that the New Testament talk about, somebody dying for our sins and so forth, because that's what he died for. You know, he cleaned the religion up, the Egyptian religion, and then we went back to Egyptian religion. Let me show this. Alright, that'll be 2nd Chronicles 30. 34, I turn right to it, man. That's something. I just opened the book up and turn right to it. You ain't hear all them pages flapping around. Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 130 years. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Elohim, and walked in the ways of David his father, and declined neither to the right hand nor to the left. For in the 8th year of his reign, while he was yet young, he began to seek after the Elohim of David his father. And in the 12th year, he began to purge Judah and Jerusalem from the high places and the groves and the carved images and the molten images. He telling the folks, y'all can't do this no more. And ain't no more of this being done. You know what I'm saying? And they break down the altars of Balaam in his presence, in the images that were On high above them he cut down in the groves and the carved images and the molten images. He brake in pieces, and he made dust of them, and he stowed it upon the graves of them that had sacrificed unto them. And he burnt the bones of the priests upon their altars, and cleansed Judah and Jerusalem. So did he in the cities of Manasseh, Ephraim, and Simon, even unto Naphtali with their metals about. And then when you read this, King Hezekiah and King Josiah's history, you'll see that it never was any 10 lost tribes, and that the tribes are still home. And, and he went, MC, and when he had broken down the altars and the groves, and had beaten the graven images into powder, and cut down all the idols throughout all Israel, he returned to Jerusalem. Now, in the 18th year of his reign, while he had purged the land, in the house, he sent Shaphan the son of Azael, and Manasseh the governor of the city, and Joash the son of Joash the recorder, to repair the house of the Elohim, his Yah. And when they had come to Hilkiah the priest, that's Jeremiah father, they delivered the money that was brought to the house of the Elohim, which the Levites that had kept the doors had gathered of the hand of Manasseh, Ephraim, and of all the remainder of Israel, and of all Judah and Benjamin, see, as Yah worshippers. And they returned to Jerusalem, and they put in the hand of such and such and such. But anyway, man, we would mess up after King Josiah's death, because the Egyptians come out. Necho is gonna be this dude right here that killed King Josiah. This Pharaoh right here killed King Josiah. This Pharaoh right here killed King Josiah. And I say it's because they're going to have to do trade across the promised land, and King Josiah just cleaned up the Egyptian and the Babylonian religion. You know, he was a prophecy king to get rid of the Egyptian religion from Jeroboam times. Man, let's look that up. So you know the Egyptians going to be wanting to kill him. They're going to be wanting to kill him. Man, if you go to 1 Kings 13, and this was in 931 when this prophecy come about, and it come to pass. And behold, there come a man. This is after Jeroboam had set up the Egyptian worship on our territory. And behold, there come a man of Yah out of Judah by the name of the Elohim unto Bethel, and Jeroboam stood by the altar to burn incense. And he cried against the altar in the word of the Elohim, and said, Altar, 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 this saith the Elohim, behold, a child shall be born unto the house of David, who Josiah by name, and upon thee shall he offer the priests of the high places that burn incense upon thee, and men's bones shall be burnt upon thee. See, King Josiah mostly went and attacked the idols, whereas King David attacked the people that worship the idols. See, it's a big difference. So the Egyptians going, mean that the person that got rid of the people that worship the idols is gonna be more worrisome to our enemies than the person that got rid of the idols. Believe the people there. See, King David got rid of the people that worship the idols, whereas King Josiah got rid of the idols, but he kind of left the people in place. So, the Egyptians going to be scared of King David, but because he got rid of the people that worship the idols. All right, so we see that it was a prophecy to get rid of the Jeroboam religion, and that he did it when he got on the throne, King Josiah, and that upsetted the Egyptians, and then they come out and got him, and it'll be this dude right here. I'm gonna see where they got King Josiah. Show you that where they got him. So it's gonna be have to, because he a Yah worshiper. Because all the other folks, they come across the promised land. I can show you Manasseh can come across the promised land. He been doing Egyptian religion. All right. Let me see. All right. But he sent ambassadors to him. That's going to be this dude right here, Necho. They got a statue of him in New York. He killed King Josiah, the prophecy king, and put us on Egyptian religion. We will go into Africa in the book of Jeremiah. That's after this dude killed King Josiah, our last chance to be saved. King Josiah was the Messiah that spoke about in the New Testament, that they make a story about Jesus and stuff. It was based upon King Josiah and so forth, because he was a show enough or a sacrifice. Because I mean, we could have been right and not been in slavery if we'd have stayed what he was doing. But this dude right here had King Josiah killed, and it's right here. But he sent ambassadors, and this is gonna be the peoples that the Assyrians set up. The Assyrians, that's Hebrews, those are Israelites right there in bondage. They're gonna be from the tribe of Gad, Reuben, and Manasseh. That what tribe they gonna be from, and the Syrians needed them to help fight during they last hour and so forth. And I can explain. I got that explained in plenty of videos. But he sent ambassadors to say, "What have I to do with thee, thou king of Judah? I come not out against thee this day, but against the house wherewith I have war. For Yah command me to make haste, for to bear thee from meddling with God, who is with me, that he destroy thee not." Nevertheless, Josiah will not turn his face, but disguise himself, that he might fight with him. Say he trying to stop the Syrians from coming across the promised land. You know what I'm saying? And the archers shot at the king Josiah, and the king said to his servants, "Have me away, for I am sore wounded." And his servants therefore took him out of the chariot. You know what I'm saying? So the Egyptians gonna be able to do trade now, because King Josiah is out the way, and we know that they put Jehoash on, snatched him and took him on to Egypt. Man, they took him to Egypt, and then his brother Jehoiakim and them. You know what I'm saying? They down with the Egyptians. They down with the Egyptians, and that was the end of our kingdom right there. See, the Egyptians can come across the land during their time. King Zedekiah and Jehoiakim them relied on the Egyptians. It's all in the book of Jeremiah, how they relied on the Egyptians for salvation. You know what I'm saying? That destroyed us. The Egyptians knew what they was doing, but King Josiah, they killed him because he was a Yah worshiper. And you see from them on down, man, it's really bad kings, man, surrounding King Josiah, man. Too many of them, man. The nation too far gone with all these bad kings. His granddaddy, his dad and them on Egyptian Amorite religion, and then King Hezekiah was a Yah worshiper. The Egyptians didn't come across the land during his time. They tried to, but they were stopped because it was Yah worshippers. Ahaz's daddy, man, the Syrians, he was all messed up. You know what I'm saying? But we see John Hand, all them Yah worshippers, all the Yah worshippers got it good. But the ones that don't worship Yah, it's the ones that, got it bad and make it bad for us, Yah worshippers. All right, so we see that, this dude, Necho, caused King Josiah to be killed and so forth. And that's because King Josiah going to be a Yah worshiper. All right, now let's show how the tribe of Ephraim did trade with the Egyptians, and how that anybody worshiping Yah gonna interfere with this. Anybody that worshiping Almighty Yah gonna interfere with this. So you go to Hosea, and it had to be Hosea 12. Anybody worshiping Almighty Yah is gonna interfere with this. Look. Ephraim feedeth on wind, and followeth after the east wind. He daily increases lies and desolation, and they do make a covenant with the Assyrians, and all is carried into Egypt. Man, if you read Hosea, Almighty Yah was furious and fussing about Ephraim cooperation with the Egyptians and the Assyrians. It was a bad thing. It was a terrible thing. They coming across the promised land. But we can't do Yah worship and have sovereignty, man, if we got our enemies coming back and forth men across the promised land. But you see, the tribe of Ephraim did trade with the Egyptians, taking all. So, if anybody interfering with that, man, that's going to be a problem. And then you see how Manasseh and Amon were during the time of the Syrians trying to get back into Egypt and establish a control. After King Hezekiah blocked it. And then King Josiah tried to do the same thing and stop them folks from coming across the promised land. Is what it boiled down to. And then his demise. And then you see these other kings gonna be associated with the Egyptian Empire. And then that's why this come down on us, That's why this come down on us. If you go to Jeremiah 44. Let's go to Jeremiah 44. That's why this come down on us, because the Israelites, messed up with the Egyptians. They can come across the promised land now. King Josiah did. Alright. This is what we did. 44. Then all the men which knew that their wives had burnt incense unto other gods, and all the women that stood by, a great multitude, even all the people that dwelled in the land of Egypt and Pathros, answered Jeremiah, saying, As for the word that thou hast spoken unto us in the name of the Elohim, we will not hearken unto thee, but we will certainly do what thing go forth out of our own mouth, to burn incense unto the Queen of heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, as we have done, we and our fathers, our kings, our princes, in the cities of Judah and the streets of Jerusalem. For then had we plenty of victuals, and were well, and saw no evil. But since we left off to burn incense unto the Queen of heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto her, we have wanted all things, and have been consumed by the sword and by the famine. So they put us on the Egyptian religion that time after they got rid of the Yah worshiper. Everybody wasn't on the Egyptian. Everybody wasn't on Yah worship and was mostly on Egyptian worship, and he didn't have the full support. So the Egyptians gonna get him. His father and his daddy before them messed it around with the Babylonian Egyptian system and so forth, and that didn't give him the strength. And then, man, look, bad kings is over with. And then we was driven into Africa after that. We was driven into Africa, and we never come back home. We never come back home, and how we been in bondage ever since, because it wasn't enough of Yah worshipers. It wasn't enough of Yah worshipers. Alright. King Manasseh. He was Amon and King Josiah's father. See what his son was. Alright, and then we can see during that time that the Assyrians come through. Look, Manasseh and Amon, they come through because the bad kings wasn't worshiping Almighty Yah. And then I want to show this Israelites. Look, you see this right here, the Mishwish tribes. The Mishwish tribes, that's the tribes that Joseph sons were mixed up in, that he had by the woman Asenath, and they was Mishwish tribes, and they controlled Upper Egypt, and they was kicking it with the Assyrians, and them was real tight. They was partners, and that's who they did trade with. And these folks interfered with the covenant throughout all our history and so forth. And we went into Africa to live with them under the name of Gromentian. Our first derogatory name is when we was kicking it with the Mishwish tribes in Lower Libya. And man, that's who we messed the covenant off with. And they come across the promised land. They kept trying to get across the promised land, man, to do trade with their relatives in Assyria and so forth, in Mesopotamia. As long as we doing the covenant, they can't come across the promised land. And the thing was, the Egyptians, couldn't survive if they didn't do trade. So it was about keeping us Israelites on the Egyptian religion. And that's what destroyed us. But they were scared of King David. They ain't get King David no problems. If you read King David history, the Egyptians didn't give him no problems, and they didn't try to come across the promised land because he got rid of the fake god worshippers. He didn't get rid of the idols. He got rid of the people that worship the idols. That make a big difference. All right, shalom, Israelites. I pray the Israelite community learned a little something from this video. Much love to everybody, and I pray that everybody, man, is doing all right. And this, the Assyrian conquest of Egypt. And they can only come, look at Judah isolated. Look, isolated. Man, Assyria took over everything but that. The Yah worshippers. The Egyptians couldn't get us and trick us all the way from the beginning, so they sent the Assyrians. And the Assyrians tricked us and broke us down, and then the Egyptians come finished us off. While the Assyrians had their hand in it. They was playing the good cop, bad cop role with us. The Assyrians was the bad cop, and the Egyptians tried to play like the good cop. And we went into bondage, messing with them folks. All right, Israelites, this is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. I pray everybody is doing all right, and that we learned a little something from this information, that when it's a lot of y'all worshipers, that our enemies be quiet. But if it ain't a lot of y'all worshipers, that our enemies gonna make some noise. Shalom, Hebrews. I pray that everybody's doing well.